Hi, everyone. This is Ray Luskin, the creative activist, and today I have a remarkable woman named Rebecca Bloomfield. She has been a stay-at-home mom, an art director, performing artist, and entrepreneur.
I've not been an art director.
I thought you said you were an art director.
I was a creative vice president. I was a writer, not an art director.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction.
Okay.
So, that's okay. I go with the flow here. So, and she is currently a partner at Jerry S. Pearlstein Insurance, specializing in keeping families safe through health, life, long-term, and disability insurance. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
I am so happy you're here today. I met Rebecca a number of years ago we were in a chamber event together, and so our lives have crossed paths numerous times. And just recently, I heard about Rebecca's creative side in a different way. So, Rebecca, I'd love to know, what does creative mean to you?
Well, creative is the best fun, and it always has been my whole life. Creative is when you say, "Oh, I have an idea," and there's an excitement, there's an energy. For me, there's a joy. Oh, I have an idea, and then the figuring out about what to do with and for that idea.
That's wonderful. So how do you express your creativity today in your life, your activities, your work, your relationships?
Wow, that's big. I would hope that my whole life is motivated by creativity. Think about, we met at a networking. Whenever I go to a chamber meeting or a professional women's meeting, I consciously open myself to the possibility that something wonderful might happen. And to me, that's some creativity in allowing the space for that to happen. And, most of the time it does. So you meet somebody like you, new idea, fresh perspective, have an idea, hear how somebody else is doing what they do, hear what the world is offering in experience, or to add to what I'm doing.
I love that. Now, I want to go into something I just found out recently that you did. You wrote a play on Abigail Adams, and I'd love to know what inspired that. And tell us a little bit about the process, and give us a little bit of Abigail's voice, if you would.
Sure. I was a creative VP at Leo Burnett, and we were at a stage where we were writing 15-second commercials. And in those 35 words, everybody had their fingers, and I was kind of going crazy. So I read at that time a biography by Phyllis Levin of Abigail Adams, wife of John Adams, the daughter of a Congregationalist minister, and a woman who read everything the men read and was actively involved in the revolution, both through her ideas, and she actually made bullets at her kitchen table, melted down her pewter spoons. But she still was a woman. And in October of 1775, when John has left for the Second Continental Congress, her mother dies, and Abigail enters what she calls her morbid debate. For 6 months, she tries to figure out what kind of woman she is, because while she has 4 children and has to take care of the farm to feed and clothe and pay the taxes for her family, she wishes to be in Philadelphia to be upon the stage of action there myself. And ministers, the preachers of the day, say a woman's body gives purpose to her life, not her mind. And she says that cannot be correct, because God gave me my mind as he gave me my body. Now, having been a working mother, mostly in corporate life from the time my children started school at 6, I didn't think we'd solve that problem. I still, when I was at work, if I had a sick child at home, was concerned about that, and if I was home, I was concerned about what the attitude or the business I was missing. So
And I think that's so relatable today, everybody. My daughter has the same thing going on today. That hasn't changed, unfortunately.
No. 250 years later, and it hasn't changed. So I decided to write the story about Abigail Adams from that perspective. And since I got the book out of the Skokie Public Library, which is a National Award winner, and Carolyn Anthony was the director, I said, can you help me, teach me how to research this? And they put me in touch with the Adams National Historic Center in Quincy, Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts Historical Society that has the copies of all the letters that Abigail wrote to her sisters and her friends and her husband and her son. And and that started the journey. It took me nearly 2 years to find the sources and craft the story and craft the play. And the hardest thing was trying to find out how she sounded, because we have her words, so I had to look at how she spelled things. Was there an I instead of an E? Was there an O instead of an A? What happened at the end of a word? And I found a place that has dialect tapes for actors, and I found a tape of people after the Revolution. Many people from the Boston area moved up into Maine, those independent New Englanders, and so I got a tape from there, and I put together an accent that was like Rose Kennedy, Katharine Hepburn, and this tape of New Englanders. And so it comes out starting like this: hope and fear have been the two ruling passions of my life, and I have bandied from one to the other like a tennis ball. Thusly, I thank you for inviting me here today. It is my hope that you will better understand the reasons for the founding of our country. Still, I fear you might censure the bearing of certain passions that telling must entail. Oh, yes, passion.
Go ahead. I want to hear the rest. Go ahead. Let's hear more about passion.
Oh, yes, passion. Whatever you have heard of Puritan reserve or New England coldness is far from the mark. Could those who have died for liberty been cold? Not at all. Mm-hmm.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. And so, tell me about how you got it produced, and and where you shared this play.
So I really had, while I have acted since I'm 8 years old and did voiceover work, I still had going, and I wanted to license it out. So I tried to get somebody to do the performance, and then decided I would do the performance at what was the theater building on Belmont near the L station. I think it's 770. Rented out the theater. I got set designers and costume builders. And there's a wonderful center at the Noise Center where there are many of these craftsmen who support the theater, the Noise Center in Evans. And had costume made, had set pieces made, found a director, and put it together and put it on. And it happened that when I did the performance, there was a group looking to produce acts at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. My performance was in May. The Fringe Festival is always the last 3 weeks in August. It is the largest performing arts center event in the world, and they had looked at improv groups from Chicago and an avant-garde dance troupe, and they came to my performance and said they wanted me to come to Edinburgh, and they put me up in a theater that they had created in the French consulate, which also had a cafe, and I would be the 1:30 to 3 o'clock performance. So I went to Edinburgh, and took my longtime dearest friend, sister of my heart, Liz Silverstein, who became the head of Siegel Artist Management, with me. And whether it was the performance itself or the fact that there was a cafe and people could have lunch and then see theater, or see theater and then have tea, I don't know. But we had full houses consistently across the 3 weeks. And the Chicago Tribune called us the surprise hit of the Chicago contingency to the Edinburgh Festival.
I love that. I have to ask, when was this?
89.
Okay, so this was before the Laura Linney role of Abigail that was on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
Way before. So you were, yes, you found this person, and you did the work, and you were just way ahead of your curve. So yeah.
So when I came back, there were things waiting from the historic site about how did the program go, and would you do it here, and would you do it there, and would you take it to schools. And the Adamses and John Quincy and his wife are buried in a church, and that's in terrible condition. There's no statue to this day for Abigail Adams, and the Historical Society was trying to promote renovation of the place where the Adamses are in a statue. And from there, then colleges picked it up, and performing arts centers. I developed programs based on pre-reading and early readers and middle school students and high school students. And for the next 12 years, I left my job at Leo Burnett. I toured mostly the eastern part of the country, from the Rockies and up and down the East Coast, and went places where children had never seen theaters, and where there was also a performing arts center, either at a retirement place or a community place, or because it was a college.
Wow! So you already you've already facilitated many different programs and created curriculum to go with it, which so that is wonderful, because the rage is Hamilton, and that's what Hamilton has done for theater today. And it seems to me it's time to to resurrect Abigail, because it is so prevalent. And I know that Miranda has set up a foundation so that you can buy the rights to the play for $10, so schools can produce it and things like that. So again, getting out that story of for us, the founding women of our country. I think that's a phenomenal concept. And what do you think it would be to do it today versus when you did it then? Where do you see?
Certainly, Hamilton has opened another door. I have pictures because I was invited to the Clinton White House twice during their 8 years there, and I was asked to portray Abigail in 2000, which was the 200th anniversary. The Adamses were the first couple to live in the White House, and at the time of the first Congress assembling in Washington, D.C., and that was a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing is to work with young people in this interactive program, not the play itself, but the interactive program, and always ask and see how the girls and the young women, since 1989 even, their attitudes have changed over how a woman was treated, and does a woman's body give purpose to her life and not her mind, and who here will be the first president of the United States, and the hands go up. So it's a very joyous thing.
Well, and it seems to me it's the right time again because of the women's movement and everything else. And I know you went to the march. I went to a march, and I was in San Diego. You went to D.C. And what is it for you to be an activist, and what does that mean to you?
I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen of this wonderful, wonderful country. And even before Abigail, democracy, Abigail says we are a participatory democracy. If you do not participate, there will be no democracy. And that's exactly how I felt before, and that's exactly how I feel now. So participation is key on every level. Whether you give some money to somebody or you show up and witness. I was a member of CORE, my age, but I was a member of CORE when I was 18, the Congress of Racial Equality. One of the reasons I went to the Women's March is that I had never gone to the 1963 March with Martin Luther King. To put yourself on the line, to be a voice, to stand, or literally to stand for what is critical, especially for every American.
Right, Rebecca, you keep fading out, so if you could get a little closer.
Okay, what I said is that to show up, to stand, is critical to being a citizen of this country, particularly this country, and so we must each do that.
Well, how do you suggest that we create a society that encourages women to speak up, that encourages participation in finding your unique voice? What are some of your ideas? Because you've spoken, and how do you think we could do that in a better way?
I'm terribly concerned about funding for education at this time, both in our city and what I see in proposed cuts coming out of Washington, because that participation, that one is part of a group, that one has a voice in a group, begins in preschool. And we have to hold that precious, and we have to hold that as sacred and promote it. So to start with the littlest children and carry that through, all schools have some kind of government, or they should, starting with at least middle school, and participation needs to be fostered there, not just in lip service or as a popularity contest, but there are two things about the arts that I truly believe. One is that everyone has an artistic and creative piece of them to be activated. And the second is that the arts, music, theater, dance, poetry, writing, when you have a project, you now are in an exercise of American entrepreneurism. You take a concept, you take an idea, you get some like-minded people together to develop the idea. You bring the idea to the public. You bring it to the public in such a way that you will either have their support or their money so that you can do it again. That's American entrepreneurism, and we have to foster that.
I love that. And, part of the challenge right now is because of the proposed cuts in funding for the National Endowment of the Arts, and, for those people who are, taking a stand, using their creativity to be that voice, and so it is a challenge right now. And even to the fact that they want to cut, public television, and, you won't see the Muppets anymore, and, all those kind of things that have helped create a voice for the youngest of our children around the country.
Right. We need to and I support the Illinois Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts and the petitions that go forward. In my local schools, there's a reading day, Dr. Seuss's birthday, always that I participate in, and someday when I leave this business, I will do more volunteering to mentor and help create programs and help support programs in a probably a middle school or a K through 12 school, so that program, that they have arts programs. So
I love
process. That process can be from concept to like-minded people to making it happen to bringing it to the public in a way that you can do it again. That process takes place.
It takes place, and it's a skill that can be taught. You know,
Yeah.
We don't teach that, and that's part of the challenge is saying that there is a process to go through, and the idea that who do you bring to the table, and the idea of diversity at the table, and ask who's not here, and what's your opinion, and what's your voice, and that connection and collaboration, and then coming up with a creative vision that's shared. You know, and it's not always going to represent one idea, you know, and there'll be diversity at the table, but coming up with that shared vision of how we want to go forward and create something, and who's going to say, you know, who's going to share that and speak out. And so I think, you know, what you're doing is wonderful, and I'm very excited to see more of Abigail and that coming forward again. I'd like to ask you a little bit, I know about, you know, your passion for insurance and helping families and caregivers right now. I know you're taking care of your mom, and, you know, and there's a whole nother piece to your life that has changed. And so let's talk about that, because that there is creativity in being a caregiver, that you have to sustain yourself, and it's about self-care and, you know, those kind of pieces as well.
My business, at a certain point after being on the road for many years, I needed to come home, and it's hard enough being in the world of the arts and then having to get your own insurance, because the union insurance is terrible. Although having a pension from the Actors Equity Fund is the proudest things of my life, but is hard. So my husband and I decided that we would be a unique agency that just helps entrepreneurs, independents, the creative, the sole practitioner, the artist, to get those benefits that are so important to sustain you. And I think sustain is the best word. Should you be ill? Should you need money to continue your life, and should you need long-term care besides the legacy you're leaving? I have taken care of 3 wonderful women over 90 years of age using various systems, and there are tremendous misconceptions about Medicare or Medicaid or veterans benefits or even long-term care, and I do a program about that, long-term care, who pays for what. But and so I can still bring my skills in telling the story as I am explaining and speaking before groups about what is this Affordable Care Act all about, what are the changes, and stories about how plans. I love that. I love that about my business.
I know you do, and you always have a sense of humor. Whenever we have a new 15 seconds, you always come up with something wonderful and creative, and I've always emulated that. So.
Well, that's you know, Abigail Adams. I will say this: I have rarely seen Abigail Adams portrayed with the wit that I think she had. I think she had a laconic New England wit, but I think she was wonderful. And what propels me to, I created a line for her that is really from myself. and that is, who can tell when a life begins where it will wander before the end? So, wonderful.
It is wonderful. So, okay, so, thinking about that, what is the legacy you would like to leave? Because, we would consider the end of our lives, at this age, and
I would mostly, if someone mentions my name, I would like people to smile. I'd like them to feel good. That the space I occupied while I was here gave them some joy or inspiration or peace, or was lovely.
That's wonderful. That is a great legacy. So, do you have any final words for our listeners?
Yes, as we approach the season of Memorial Day and July 4th, and even into Labor Day, I would like people to be aware of their citizenship and think of what that means for them, and how precious it is, and that it really is a role, a title for each and every person who is a citizen, an immigrant, a legal resident, a person who can be a participant in democracy.
That is such a perfect ending for today. So thank you so much, Rebecca, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much, and I wish you all energy and success to the creative endeavors and what you do to help make people realize their creative potential.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.